the key is take it, run with it. I think that's really important for women in business in particular, because sometimes, we're asking for permission in what we have. And again, not because we want to, but because culturally we've been conditioned to do that, and making sure that we don't have to, because we're proving ourselves so much. And again, women are so empathetic as leaders, as well as smart and decisive. And again, flexing that in a way that you're brought to the next level.
Welcome back to the Badass Women in Business podcast. Today's guest is Veronica Hart, Chief Growth Officer of RWS Global, where she helps turn powerful brands, stories, and live experiences into new revenue and global impact. With more than 25 years leading growth, licensing, and franchise strategy for some of the biggest names in entertainment, Veronica knows what it takes to build in complex markets while making sure women have a real seat at the table. Veronica, we're so excited to have you here. Tell us how your journey led you to where you are today.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you both for having me on. I hope I live up to that lovely introduction. So thank you so much. I think, like a lot of women in business, I've done a little bit through a lot of hard work, a little bit of luck, and a lot of great connecting people along the way who have been mentors, supporters. I learned a lot about what I liked about how people operated business, how I would want to do things differently than other people. So I really started mostly with a passion for entertainment. That's what I grew up loving, truly just wanting to watch TV, loving movies, reading books. That was just where my joy came from. And when I was in college, and as you so astutely mentioned, over 25 years ago, I was trying to figure out how I could turn my love of entertainment into something that's a viable job, because I didn't want to be an entertainer. I really didn't understand that there was this whole business economy behind the world of entertainment. I was an economics major and didn't want to go into finance, and was able to get one first internship and then a job on the entertainment side with a small production company, and just learned so much there, and was able to continue to, again, maneuver and grow in various companies. And that included a lot of kids entertainment companies. So the Jim Henson Company, I was at Sony Wonder, which at the time was a division of Sony that was focused on kids animation. Then I went to Sesame Workshop, continuing in the kids vein and just loving that piece of the business. And then I wanted to better understand, again, closer to the ecosystem of true entertainment. I went to CBS, and then that became Paramount, and was there for over 17 years and loved the experiences side of the business that we worked on. And that's what kind of, in a nutshell, brought me to RWS, which I'm excited to talk more about.
Amazing. You've had quite the journey. For my benefit and our guests and our listeners' benefit, hopefully, there are a lot of leading titles in business. What does a chief growth officer actually do?
It's a very good question, and every day is a little bit different. As chief growth officer, first of all, RWS Global is a live entertainment and sports company. We have a few different divisions where we design and build attractions, cultural centers, museums, and other kind of entertainment-driven locations. Then we have the live entertainment side of what we do, and that's across land and sea. So we provide entertainment for theme parks, cruise ships, the hospitality industry in general, a lot of resorts, a lot of touring attractions. We have a sports division where we produce international sports competitions, and we're doing a lot with sports leagues as the lines between entertainment and sports blur a little bit. And then we do some other things that fuel that side of the business. We have a merchandise division and a casting division, which is, again, kind of a way in with a lot of these clients. And as chief growth officer here, I am working with our pipeline of who are our partners today, who are our partners for tomorrow. How do we get a little bit more creative in business models as an agency in this space that's building globally? So I've worked with our senior team to build a lot of our offices around the world, Shanghai and Riyadh, in addition to some of the offices in Sydney and the UK that were already in the works before I joined, as well as the US. And I oversee our marketing and PR. So I'm kind of like our CMO as well. And I've brought in some other kind of strategic partnership thinking with licensing and our merchandise team. How do we, again, supercharge those businesses as we go forward? But every day is a little bit different, managing great teams and trying to think about where should we be in the next 2-3 years and beyond, not just where we are today.
Speaking of 2 and 3 years and beyond, the landscape of entertainment is changing and has been changing over the past decades. I remember, as you pointed out, you love TV and movies. I grew up on TV and movies as well. It was very, very different 20 to 30 years ago. So, how in the last 25 years have you seen the landscape change in your field?
Well, I think the thing we've all learned just watching it, never mind being in it, is that the only constant is change in this business. And again, a lot of it for the better, obviously, like being able to really create these immersive worlds that can be so much more authentic than they even were 30 years ago, being able to, again, be so globally focused, bring franchises back to life. Mm-hmm. All of that's really exciting. The downside of that, and one reason why, as much as I love being within the center of entertainment, I was excited to move to the other side. That's more of a kind of exploding growth business for now, is that it's just a very complicated landscape right now. And companies buying companies. Like in the time that I was at Paramount, a lot of shifts in corporate structure, and a lot of it working with the teams hand in hand. But just the consolidation is something that across the landscape we're just seeing more and more. And because I care so much about kind of the fan experience at the end of the day, and like how do you look at IP in the lens of what are the fans actually looking for and wanting. I just, in this, again, ever-changing world that we're in, it's more about what are these brands going to be treated the ways that they need to be? How do we continue to leverage the momentum of theaters? And again, how do we meet consumers where they are? In the last 30 years, back to your core question, obviously, no one had phones, never mind no one was watching half their content on phones. Everyone had to leave the house. Now the biggest competition that we have is how do you make sure that the movie-going experience, or in what I do, the immersive kind of world-building experience or attraction experience, is innovative and interesting, and there's enough value in it to compete against getting people off their couch? How do you have people leave their homes to shop and not just want to do that from home? So again, it's ripe with a lot of opportunity with technology and shifting and attitudes, as long as you understand what that fan or consumer is looking for, but just tremendous shifts in kind of every fabric of what entertainment was versus what it is now.
It's so interesting to me because I was just speaking a few weeks ago with an attorney that really focuses on working with people in sports, entertainment, and so forth. And she had mentioned that a lot of the entertainment companies today, they're aging out and it's ripe for acquisition for larger companies or things of that sort. So I'm curious, at RWS, do you have a strong acquisition? And what does that kind of look like when it comes to bringing on more entertainment brands? And what kind of shift have you seen personally in this space?
Yeah. Well, it's, again, so many shifts in this space and just so much opportunity still in the space. Again, the global growth opportunity is big. Trying to make sure that you're creating the right size experience for the right brand or the right audience is critical. But more and more locations are, if they weren't immersive before, they weren't kind of an attraction, hospitality essence before. Now that's what more and more you need to do. It's what the consumers are so much savvier now, or fans are so much savvier. That's what they expect. We, as a business, we're about 300 people around the world right now. Our founder is still our executive chairman of the company. He founded the company 22 plus years ago. I've been friends with him for over 20 years of that and watched the business grow and evolve. And it was one reason it was, such a great opportunity for me to come in and work hand in hand with him and the rest of the team that he's built to continue to keep us on that path forward through that growth. A lot of it was organic over time. He really started as a live entertainment business, just seeing that he could create a kind of spectacle and stage experiences better than the competition and do it in a more efficient way as a partner, as a vendor, or an agency. And that was where it was predicated. And then he got into the cruise industry and then again, more global growth. But then acquisition has been a big part of our evolution as well. So we acquired a design business, which is now that design and build side of what we do. And it's all branded RWS now. We acquired a sports business, which is, again, fueling a lot of the growth that we're seeing because there is so much opportunity in the sports landscape that is, again, you think it can't get bigger, but it continues to evolve and find new fans and new ways to get bigger. And now the events around the events are as important as the games themselves. And that in of itself is a whole business. And we acquired what was a UK business, which was one of the ways that we started our global expansion. And then through other joint ventures and partnerships, we continued to dip our toe into other markets. And now we've kind of fully built our own businesses. And as I mentioned, some of those markets, including the Middle East and China and Australia, and we're growing our headquarters in the UK as well as we've opened new offices in the US. So a lot of that was just in success, reinvesting in the business and making sure that there was a good balance of managing revenue and, again, that reinvestment to continue to fuel that growth. And then private equity came in as a minority stake in our business before I joined. I actually joined from the board. They asked when Bluestone, our equity advisors, came in, they formed a board and I was on it and vocal. And then I started consulting and working more and more closely before I came in-house. But we're continuing to look at the landscape because, to your points, a lot of independently run companies, that leadership is looking for what's next for them or who could come in to grow the business beyond the scale that they were in. And that is certainly happening at an ongoing rate. We're continuing to look at what is out there for our own growth. We're much more turnkey now. Do we have everything we need to be turnkey? But we want to make sure that we're stable and the foundation of our business continues to grow at our scale with our current capabilities before we do a lot to change, again, the face of who we are as a business. But private equity, I don't have to tell both of you as business owners, private equity and the financial landscape has shifted so much. This is an industry that there's a lot of eyes on. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity. It's just about finding the right partners and the right size fit and the right business construct that there's as much reward as risk in growing in that scale and size, in my opinion.
Yeah, great answers. I want to pivot because you have worked with some of the most iconic entertainment properties in the world. And I want to know, also selfishly, want to talk about women's sports a little bit. What makes a brand strong enough to expand into licensing, retail, merchandising, and live experiences? We've seen so many new teams in the WNBA and the NWSL and the PWHL. Like it's growing in the women's sports arena. So I'm curious on your take on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I consider, as I mentioned earlier, like luck is part of it. Looking back to be able to work with, SpongeBob SquarePants and be in meetings where, some of Seth, I just, so many talent are in so many, I don't want to name drop, but so many people are in so many rooms that I've had an opportunity to present to and work with and explore what are they doing with content? How do we turn that into the ancillary businesses? Because a lot of what I was always focused on was that kind of consumer products and experiences realm. How do you turn the love of something that you're watching on screen into something tangible that you can buy at retail, experience for yourself? Like, what would you want to buy for yourself from an adult, a female perspective, as well as from a kid's perspective? Like, what is that right roadmap of products that make sense? And to your point, you need enough exposure to be able to build a licensing program. Certainly you can start by doing marketing. And that's, again, the immersive side, the experiences side is such a big piece of marketing now, because what is traditional advertising? It's totally shifted and changed. How do you get eyeballs? It's all through social and experiential and things that can go viral.
Mm-hmm.
So starting product in that vein and starting experiences in that vein is always a good place to start if you don't know exactly the size of your audience. And then knowing that you have the right awareness at the right time and that you're building something that, again, somebody wants is critical in order to see that pay off. So there's a lot of, you have to have a lot of self-awareness when it comes to where are you in the life cycle of your intellectual property or your brand, and is there a demand for something when you're in that business? And I've, gotten to work with Kermit the Frog and launched a lot of, great brands. I worked with Thomas the Tank Engine, Yellowstone, Emily in Paris, like a lot of really wonderful shows and IP where you could see it clamoring. People were asking on social media, asking online, when you see counterfeit merchandise, that's how you know that there's time for you to have your licensed merchandise. And that's in that side of the business. Going to women's sports, I mean, I 100% agree with you, Aggie. The momentum behind women's sports, I mean, it's about time, but it's also like something we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's now a proven audience in this space, it's obviously still growing. The monetization, as strong as it is, again, like there's room to grow to get to where men's sports has been, but there's so much smart leadership being put, I think, on women's teams now with women in mind, but not only women in mind. You have to this is a sport that has a diverse audience watching it as well. And knowing that, and again, creating the right product that people are looking for, that's fashionable and people would want to be seen in, that's quality, that is at the right size, and taking risks sometimes is an important piece of that. We're more on the production side of sports, not we do some merchandise when it relates to sports. There's some amazing players out there, but the biggest people on the sports landscape out there, fanatics, et cetera, they're seeing that there's the market for women's sports and they're really jumping in. So I'm very optimistic for what that means over the next few years and hopeful for all of us.
Same.
Keeping on the woman vein,
yeah.
You said that part of your personal mission is to make sure that women have a place at the table.
Yeah.
What has that been like in your personal career? And what advice would you give to women that may be sitting at tables that are still male dominated?
Yeah, great question. I mean, the research shows that boards that have women at the table are more successful, or those businesses are more successful than when they don't. I think there's a lot of proof of concept especially in some of these businesses. I mean, obviously women are 50% of the population and more of the purchase power. And so being able to understand what that full demographic is looking for is key. I've been lucky in my career that I've had mentors throughout my life. And I went to not really intentionally, but for my family intentionally, I went to an all-girls high school. And I think that also helped me realize, like, you have to speak up. You're speaking up for yourselves. I went to Barnard. That, certainly that mission of women empowerment has stuck with me my whole life. Now I'm in a phase in my career where I'm still very proud of what I do. And I, think there's a lot more that I can offer, but it's much more about what is the future face of leadership and what are the women that are going to bring business to the next level. And I brought that into RWS, where we now have women leadership meetings. I was very lucky to work for Strong Women at Paramount that had that same philosophy. And we also made sure that we were just creating forums for safe space of conversation, but also getting to meet really incredible women that are making change, whether that's in business, whether that's in not-for-profits, whether that's in education, whether that's in media. Who are the change makers and how do you follow them? And I think what women today, and certainly when I was coming up, have to recognize, and it was a hard lesson for me, is sometimes you have to ask questions, and you want to come in with authority. You want to make sure that you're not saying too many apologies for being there, for speaking up, for existing. but also it's okay to admit you don't have all of the answers. And it's much better to do your research, be educated, be informed, but ask the right questions so that you can speak with authority the next time and that you can learn from the next one. And I mean, again, for me, I'm learning every day from people that are younger than me, that are on my teams, that have a very different perspective than I do, have a very different kind of social mindset than I do, which they should, and making sure that they have a safe space to take it away and know that I'm not saying I've got the answers. I would much rather learn and create space for people to do their best work now. And I think a lot of us are struggling. I mean, there's so much to unpack in what you asked, but certainly a lot of tables still have men at them, a majority male, and of course, having men that understand the value that women are bringing to the table is important as well, or pushing those forums or actually speaking up and saying, this is kind of a one-sided argument. We need to come at it from a different point of view. Having sort of the courage and the gravitas to do that is going to be important for the next woman coming through the door. So I've always tried to be a little bit of the squeaky wheel while also, again, having a balanced point of view and perspective as we looked at these conversations.
Mm. That is such an interesting take, especially since yesterday I had the privilege of attending Techstars demo day. And one of the companies who was very analog for Techstars, but the name of the company is Obert. And they make safety clothing for women in the trades, essentially. So boots, safety boots, and safety trousers.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the CEO was talking about in her pitch was the fact that she's competing against brands like Carhartt, who have left women to the side because they are afraid that if they changed their brand, they would miss out on the millions and millions of dollars or billions of dollars that are coming to them through the male population. So taking this conversation a little bit deeper, what do you think that women leaders bring to high stake growth conversations that companies need more of right now? Just to may not change fully the perception, but include more women at those tables that they may not be still welcome to.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had a great answer for that because obviously it's still happening, but it's so interesting what you say about that, because again, my response to that would be, of course, you don't change the DNA of what your company is, but you don't want to walk away from the billions that you're making, but think about the millions you're leaving off the table by not thinking about, again, 50% of the population where there's such a changing perspective of like who's doing those jobs and who's in those roles. It seems, it's interesting, but again, good for any startup or any woman in business or company in business that sees the opportunity because of the opportunity left behind by some of these big companies that aren't shifting as quickly. Like that's my big take on that. I don't know. I think it is, I mean, obviously, I don't want to get political, but though it's an interesting world right now because I think a lot of the conversations that even 4 years ago about DE&I that were at the forefront of the table, whether companies are scared to have them or whether companies feel more comfortable not having them, that's hard to watch. That's me personally speaking, not as a company representative. I one of the things that I really appreciated on what we're doing as a business and what we've created these forums for is we do a lot of talking to our team, our global team, and we get a lot of questions and we answer them, from our executive chairman to our now interim CEO to myself. Like we all sit in a room and we'll answer every question that's lobbed at us. And very early on, when a lot of the bigger corporate companies were saying, basically they were disbanding their D&I progressive teams, or what are we doing about that? And our story is, and the proof is in what we're doing, is that we are who we are. We are a diverse company. We celebrate that we're a diverse company. We want to continue to be a more diverse company, but we would never walk away from that. We have a D&I pillar. We have goals. We're celebrating, again, the diversity of our team and making people feel okay to be their authentic self. I think the rooms that have more men in them, it's a tough conversation if they haven't broken through yet and they haven't seen the value on what's gonna be that tipping point for them to see the value there. But I would say it's just kind of where we started, which is you think you're doing something that's right for the business because you're scared to walk away from who your core audience is, but maybe do some data, look at the data, do research, who really is your core audience, and what's that whole piece of business that you're never going to see growth in if you're not focused on that audience. And if you don't have someone that can represent those people in the room, then you're never going to be able to authentically speak to them. That's my take. I don't know if it's going to be meaningful. I'm sure you've heard better answers, but like we just have to keep chipping away and never stop saying, like, what about the other perspective?
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. I want to get back to kind of when you did your intro. Your role is in so many different veins and avenues, and you have to have this global perspective. We do speak to a lot of entrepreneurs and so forth. So I think someone who's working inside an ecosystem of a large organization, but still is influencing multiple areas and departments, how do you prioritize where your time and energy goes and ensure that the results are being delivered on?
Yeah, I mean, again, I wish I had a perfect answer because every day it's a little bit different. But no, certainly, again, having faith in your teams is critical, and knowing that you're hiring the right people and structuring things the right way. So when I first came in, I spent a lot of time and what is our structure? We kind of pressure test that. We're still learning and evolving to the more global and the bigger scale that our business is in. But and we've done a really great job, not just myself, but our whole team of, again, creating accountability at every level. Just because you're not the most senior person in the company doesn't mean that you're not you're not autonomous for what you're supposed to be delivering on. And when there are check-ins, and obviously there are times that I'll make a call or we'll change things and things get escalated, it's very much with what is the results, and what's going to set us up for the most success. So time management is a big one, making sure that I don't feel I have to be in every room or every meeting, but picking the right meetings to be in globally, again, thinking just from a normal time zone standpoint, like starting the day in the Middle East, those could be sometimes very early starts for myself or my team in China, sometimes going later in the evening, trying to be flexible for people's time zone, respectful of where they are. And especially for us, where we're a client-driven business now, we need to do that. And then having kind of forums we have a project management system that really helps everybody check in and give updates. So not everything has to be a phone call update, like really capturing everything and going back to something where, again, every week, every month, you're looking at your time in action. Where are we tracking to where we were is an important part of what we do. From a global standpoint, the sentiment is so different in every market. So obviously I've learned a lot, and I continue to learn a lot from, we have a global mentality, but we have teams on the ground in all of these key markets. And the way you carry yourself, the conversation that you're going to have, and the protocols in a conversation in Shanghai are going to be different than the protocols of a conversation in Abu Dhabi, which is going to be different than the protocols of conversation in New York. And as much as people respect my role and who I am, also, being thoughtful about learning any kind of cultural nuance going into the room, leveraging the team the right way, setting up those meetings the right way. That's important and can be humbling, but it is important to respect people where they are too, and then kind of do the work that you do.
You said something really key in there that I think many, many business owners struggle with, especially when they're smaller, is the accountability piece and autonomy, no matter what level you're at in the company. How do you guys enforce that? And a lot of people just go straight to, well, I'm going to put them on a performance improvement plan and then they're going to be out, et cetera. So what are some tips that you've shared from managing such large organizations that have worked and actually gotten those team members on track if they were maybe falling off?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say in the luxury of the various companies that I've been at over time with different businesses, sizes, it's always a little bit different. But the bigger infrastructure of a Paramount Global and then the the type of business at RWS Global are kind of similar in nature in that everything is very goal oriented. So we'll have, again, our founder has very kind of clear rules he's set out for the DNA of the company that he wanted to build and how we should show up as people that are in that company. And, again, just like showing respect to people, having the right conversations, fast follow up, being responsive, being thoughtful, a lot of the things that are kind of no brainers, but they're actually captured as kind of a principles. Then we have goals for the company that as a leadership team, and that's our C-suite team, as well as our kind of EVP leadership team, we kind of sit in a room every year and think about, okay, here's what we did last year. Here are our goals for next year. And again, we're seeing a lot of growth and shifts in our business. So we always are looking at, we don't want to change what's working, but how do we keep evolving based on where we are today versus where we were 6 months ago, 12 months ago? Then that cascades to more kind of divisional goals and then departmental goals within that. And then on the very individual level, kind of setting those goals for yourself. With my team, it's a little bit easier and harder depending on where you're sitting because, part of that is a financial goal and like a client deal structure. We've added a lot of rigor to that process. I mean, I've added that rigor since I've come in of just, again, that kind of individual accountability that you would need in that structure, but then also a lot of the collaborative spirit goals that we want to have so it doesn't become just about the individual. And then, again, creating environments where I think my team knows and they do seem to, that I have kind of an open door policy, virtual open door, physical open door, that if there's something that we need to talk about, if there's something that needs to be recalibrated, if there's something among colleagues that needs to be addressed, that individual accountability at every level does not mean you're out to fend for yourself and you're not getting the support of the team. Like if anything, escalate when it comes to are you not able to do your best work because there's something in your way? And how do we try to tackle those roadblocks one by one? And, again, just constantly make that a muscle we keep trying to sharpen kind of as a team together because there's no one answer as we continue to shift.
That is such an important lesson in leadership for anyone listening, is that it's a team sport at the end of the day. It's not because you as a leader say that things need to be done a certain way that the person on the other side may be grasping that same type of logic that you do.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say on that is that especially when you have a matrix of like what we do is literally find partners, produce an event.
Yeah.
At the best quality we can, at the best budget we can, with the right teams, and then move on to the next. And so sometimes that collaborative spirit, that finding a solution isn't always easy, but it's key because we can't do something that's going to make the operations teams not succeed either. That's like individual success for the sake of individual success without company or whole team success isn't really success. And then we use those case studies as we talk too, and also being overly thoughtful and like taking too much time to figure something out in a business that has the kind of speed to market that we need. You also have to be really careful about that. So yeah, just the open dialogue and not saying there's only a one size fits all approach. We're all about protocols and processes, but you sometimes have to live in the gray and you have to figure out, does this work for us or what would make it work for us as we go forward?
Yeah. And that collective participation creates buy-in for everybody. And so when everybody is bought into the direction that you are going towards, it makes it so much easier.
Totally.
When we started talking before we pressed record, you said, I'm not a business owner, but I do work in a business. I'd like to give you credit because you did build the first ever franchise division at CBS Customer Products. So I'm curious what that taught you about creating something inside a larger organization that did not exist before. Because to me, you're also battling in this scenario, you're battling so many more roadblocks than an entrepreneur starting a company and just going through with their ideation and their creation. Whereas here, you have to gain permission. So I'm curious how that worked out for you.
Yeah, it was actually a really interesting experience. And to your point, I never thought about it that way. So thank you for presenting it like that, because I really did. It was kind of a startup within this much larger kind of legacy infrastructure, which, to be fair, was completely shifting and changing because a lot of why it worked was that streaming was becoming so important to CBS then, which it is now to Paramount. And that too was evolving a business that we were all kind of working together to, I guess what I do now is how do we want to show up in 3 years and how do we all work kind of going in the same direction, because that's a lot easier than us all trying to go in different points on the map.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was, again, I had a lot of support internally that it was instituted because Star Trek was such an important franchise and IP for CBS at the time that they got it back when Paramount and CBS had split prior to my joining CBS. And then we kind of came back together while I was there. But there wasn't a synchronized plan. It was a legacy IP that had mostly been, at the time, kept alive and iconic because of the fans, because there was this love and passion of going to the conventions, which were licensed, reading the books, which were licensed, buying the products, which were all consumer products licensed, and playing the video games. And I think we all know, especially in today's world, as we talked about the changing landscape, video games, experiences, buying things, that is content almost as much as what you're seeing on your screen. So we really kept that kind of lifeblood going through the consumer products team. And then when there was an ambition to bring back the content, which they did very successfully for a very long time on the Paramount Plus side, it should really harken back to what is it that people love about Star Trek if we're launching a new series. And at the time, there was also movies in development, which I know there are again. Everything should be built in one comprehensive way so it all feeds each other and it's all more successful because 1 + 1 can equal 3 if we're doing it the right way and we're leveraging marketing and messaging. And again, we're igniting that fandom versus if we were all doing our own thing. If there was a show over here and consumer products plan over here, and there was a game that wasn't related to any of that, and maybe a movie in development that wasn't connected, or even the logos all being different, I think there was a feeling that we did need to get all the stakeholders in a room and really map out a plan, but we needed someone to lead it. So I got to work with the kind of creative vision for Star Trek, Alex Kurtzman and David Staff, who was the head of entertainment still, or the studio still at CBS. And like they all agreed we needed this. And it was really about collaboration, all the things that I said before. How do we get people in a room? What's the priority of those things in the room? What's going to cause the biggest impact? What can be paused a bit because we want to make sure that we're making this bigger announcement first that can feed everything. And I built a team from scratch, kind of small and mighty team from scratch to do it. But it was really, hard at times to get everybody to agree. But once it was created, there was a overwhelming sense of support from everybody, from the streaming side and from the entertainment side and from the consumer product side, et cetera, to say, like, if we hadn't done this, it wouldn't have had the impact that we were able to deliver together. And yeah, and it's a team that's still ongoing at the business today. And once we merged, I was able to do that more within the consumer products and experiences realm for the entirety of the Paramount library. So those seeds were able to continue. And I still see stuff today that we worked on, and it's really nice to see that out in the world. So,
being that you are in such a exposed leadership role and you're sometimes burning the candle at each end with being a global company, what are some of the things you do to keep yourself in check, aligned, and have the energy and the clarity to continue to bring to the organization?
Well, first of all, I do do a lot of talking about our team and our business. And I have to say that on the business side of what I do, that really fuels me because I really am. I said this to Ryan Stana when I came in, who's our executive chairman. And I've worked at some really amazing companies and people that are very pedigreed and known, and the passion and the diligence and the focus and the hard work that our team does every day, like it really does blow me away. I mean, people will get on a plane, fly for 20 hours, get off the plane, immediately go into rehearsals. We cast 8,000 performers and technicians a year that are, our offices get to be close to our rehearsal studios. So I get to see them rehearsing. And that kind of like, it just fuels me that our creative team that's so inclusive of having the business team come in and we're all, again, kind of problem solving. Like I do feel truly lucky that I get to talk about the work that we do every day because I'm constantly impressed. Like I see the design work our team does and the creativity and, I fancy myself a creative, but I'm not. And so when I actually see it all come to life, like I really do get emotional, especially when you see it with crowds. And we designed the Indy Motor Speedway Museum, kind of the revisited museum. And for fun, which I'll get into, I went to the Indy 500, which I've never been to, but my son, who's 13, is a massive fan of IndyCar. And we went to that and I got to bring my family to the museum on its busiest day of the year. And I'd been there on opening day, but to see it with kind of like everyday normal fans and seeing the work that our team did 2 years later still be so relevant and exciting was like really fun. And to have my kids see it was, just really nice for me. Just the way it was always really fun when I could take my kids to the Kids' Choice Awards with Nickelodeon or, bring them to an event. It kind of feeds my spirit a little bit. For what I do when I'm not working, again, I have a wonderful family who I love to spend time with. My daughter's a freshman in high school. My son's in 7th grade. My husband's wonderful and supportive and lets me travel around the world for work, knowing that he's picking up the slack at home constantly, while I let him be his most, kind of supportive self in his own job. And, I try to be there for him too. So I'm very lucky in my family unit. We have a lot of fun together. I love travel, which is why the global part of my job is certainly a nice to have and not a negative. And, balancing that can be tricky, but where I can tack on some days or bring my family to things, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I love being outside. I love the beach. I love being at water. So just like seeing a lake or an ocean kind of calms me. I'm trying to get better about mindfulness because I think I have a long way to go and I could probably learn from you guys and some of the other podcasts that you've done on what are some other ways to separate myself. But a week on a beach is a great way for me. And I just have a really, I'm a social person. And so being able to see my friends, see my family, my sisters who I'm very close to, being able to carve out those moments, like it really is something I would rather be tired, but go out and do that thing than sleep for the 8 hours I probably need to do to catch up on sleep on a Friday. It just makes me happy. Yeah. And then, as I mentioned before, I love entertainment. So I still, not a great sleeper. I could probably learn something from someone, but I'll still watch every show and every streaming movie that comes out. Again, we work with Netflix. We've worked with Amazon. We work with so many partners, Mattel, Hasbro, et cetera. So to be able to see the content come out and then that sparks ideas. Like, again, I'm still that 12-year-old kid that just came home from school and watched reruns in the afternoon until I was yelled at. And I would still be that person today if I didn't have responsibilities.
Love that.
Fun fact, I read something not too long ago that said that the 8 hours sleep that we're supposed to be getting was a myth invented through advertising by Beauty Rest back in the day. Oh. And that our creative genius is actually happening whenever it's meant to happen. So it's also fine if you're sleeping 4 hours, taking 2 hours to create and sleeping 4 hours again. But we don't need 8 hours of continuous sleep. I've read a few sources on that, but I mean, I'm not debunking the myth. I'm just saying that it was a big part of advertising back in the day, and was invented by the betting industry. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go. It all comes down to marketing. That doesn't surprise me.
Hey, so
it's like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. I get it.
Everything. If we go back to marketing, you're making our lives like addictive with everything that people in advertising and marketing are doing for sure. And especially today, as we talked about it in the advent of us staring at our little boxes and scrolling up and down and not necessarily checking our sources. There's a lot of things. My daughter is the quintessential consumer. She'll see something, she's like, "Oh, we got to get this, Mom." I'm like, "No, we don't."
I think our children have been programmed to be the quintessential consumers of
yes.
like 25 years in consumer products. I can I can tell you more offline. But
Oh, yes. So much. I mean, we can delve into so many topics. Over the course of your career, like, what is like one of those favorite growth moments that you've had that has changed the way that you act as a leader?
oh, that's great. Like personal growth moments
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Personal growth.
well, again, I've been really lucky, and I'm going to just name drop, even though they'll probably never listen to this, a couple of amazing women and men that have been really there for me over time. But I mentioned in the beginning that I first got exposed to entertainment because I got an internship, which, again, if anyone that's young is listening, again, so critical. Just as much to learn what you don't want to do as what you do want to do. I think it's so important, not to mention the contact building. But
Mhm.
I was very lucky in that internship that they turned my turned it into a part-time job when I finished graduating college. Then I got hired as a full-time job when I graduated college. And, again, that was a lot of hard work on my side, but I came in as kind of an assistant role. Everyone was wonderful. I was working a lot. And then someone who was running corporate communications on the Sony Wonder side, Alan Winikoff, gave me an opportunity. Someone left, and rather than bringing a higher level person in, he gave me the opportunity to kind of apply for the job internally. And he gave it to me at what was a pretty young age for that job. I think it was started as a manager, but I was 23. I mean, I was very young, 22. And he definitely got pushback. I could hear it. And he said, she can do it. I know she can do it. And he really mentored me and kind of taught me the rules of the things he didn't think I knew yet that would be helpful. And again, I gave it my all, and he was really supportive of me. So that's one person. Then after I left there, I went to the Jim Henson Company, which is, again, through people that I met and building my network, which is so important. And I was in corporate communications, also there managing kind of PR for their consumer products and marketing of what they were doing. And a woman who is no longer with us, who is a powerhouse, Isabel Miller, who is running global consumer products for the Jim Henson Company. And again, was like an icon in the space, took the time to spend time with me, teach me the ropes of consumer products more in the lens of I was talking about her business. But then at some point, she turned to me and said, and so did Bets Fitzgerald, who has retired but was running domestic licensing. The two of them were an amazing dynamic duo. They both turned to me and said, you shouldn't be talking about this from a PR standpoint. Like, you actually are good at this. Like, you're good with partners. You have a knack for this kind of thing. You should move to our team. And they gave me an opportunity to move to the consumer product side. And again, I worked my hardest. I was doing everything that I needed to do to make them not regret that decision, but they really gave me an opportunity. And then they recommended me when I went to Sesame Workshop, and I ran global toys for Sesame, kind of still in the era of not the first Tickle Me Elmo, but when Tickle Me Elmo was still like all the rage, and so many other products that were popular with that great crew of characters. And I met this woman, Liz Kolodner, who was running consumer products. I reported to someone that reported to her. And also, she kind of took the time out to meet me, spend some time with me, teach me the things that she thought were important. And my boss there was great also. But then she ended up leaving. And then I ended up leaving at some point for a different job. And then when she went back, she started consumer products at CBS. And I reached out to her, but she welcomed the conversation and brought me in. And that job really set me up for everything else. I came in as director licensing on the consumer product side, and I grew and kind of built the role there. And then when she exited the business, they made me head of consumer products there. And I built up that team and built the business beyond that. And then I started the franchise division. And then I got to go to Paramount and do that kind of on a bigger global scale. So for me, I just having people looking out for me has been a lesson in why I want to look out for other people over time. And again, and when you're given an opportunity, take it, run with it, do your best work. That's my guidance. I think I got away from the question a little bit, but I hope that helps.
Loved it.
No, it gave us a lot of context on how important as a leader that it is to find those gems, those sparks, and see if you can take that and make it a little bit more.
But the key is, because I'm doing this with interns that we have and new people, is take it, run with it. I mean, obviously do it in the right way, but don't keep asking for permission or keep saying, okay, I've taken it as far as I can go. Then you have to think about, how do I bring it to the next level? I think that's really important for women in business in particular, because sometimes, we're asking for permission in what we have. And again, not because we want to, but because culturally we've been conditioned to do that, and making sure that we don't have to, because we're proving ourselves so much. And again, women are so empathetic as leaders, as well as smart and decisive, and again, flexing that in a way that you're brought to the next level.
That's amazing. Veronica, this has been a wonderful conversation. It's been really fun digging into your journey, all the experiences, and the impact that you have in everybody's lives. I mean, depending on what stage they're at, it's such a beautiful thing to be bringing entertainment, keeping that alive. I think it's so important culturally, experientially. And so we're excited to see what RWS continues to do with you as the growth officer. But thank you so much for being on the Badass Women in Business podcast and joining us today.
Thank you both so much. This has been so fun. The time went really, really quickly. But Christy Agate, it's been a pleasure, and can't wait to take a listen and stay in touch.
Likewise. And to everybody listening, see you next week, and stay badass. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did recording it. If you like our show, please rate us, drop us a review on your favorite streaming app, and we'll catch you on the next episode. This was the Badass Women in Business podcast by Christy and Agate.